All right.
Okay.
I guess we'll move on. The next person on the list is Stephen Lynch.
That's cool. Just get with me Saturday.
Okay, this was a short story that I wrote for a class recently, and it kind of assumes some pre-knowledge about the book that it was written concurrently with, which is a piece by Edgar Allan Poe, who was a pioneer for mystery fiction or detective fiction in Japan. So it's called Yoshiko's Manuscript. Oyamada Dokuro's death had been sensational at the time, yet the passage of over a month's worth of scandal and debauchery within the metropolitan heart of Japan had quickly erased any of its actual significance. Had I not been aware of the troubling events taking place within the Oyamada home for the previous months, the murder would also hardly linger in my own mind, regarded as little more than a bizarre intrigue in the world of the elite. Police had made little headway in the investigation, and the likelihood of a true suspect being found diminished with each passing day, the case silently being swallowed up into obscurity. Tokyo kept the Flatfoots busy, and one could hardly expect a dead-end case like Oyamada's to lead anywhere, especially when it was so much easier to file away as a case of suicide. Given Oyamada's meteorized success and the expected stress of an entrepreneur, it was an easy line to buy. Nobody was aware of what he had been doing for the nearly 2 years he spent abroad, and rumors abounded as to the nature of his experiences and the lasting effect they may have had on the businessman. Though practices of the West had been fairly well received over the past decade, an inborn fear and anxiety existed with regard to the corrupting influences that came part and parcel with these widely accepted innovations. Had the wealthy trader picked up illicit habits during his time in the civilized world, exposed to taste and temptations that merely augmented any pre-existing eccentricities, methods, and mindsets that, when abused, simply made his life come apart that much easier? Though I often pen these thoughts with ink and paper, my initial curiosity waned as the fickle public's, distracted by the droll yet necessary everyday duties as befitting a newspaperman like myself. Given my past success with near and full-blown reclusive writers, I often found myself passing out the hours to scouring the back alleys and derelict quarters of the city in pursuit of these rare and oft-times irreconcilable gems of prose, framed by whatever mundane feature or byline that happened to punctuate the moment. Having lost all real bearing on my most influential charge, one Oishinde, these pursuits had lost a sense of real purpose, relegated to brief flights of fancy when time permitted. An odd phone call from a writer of some renown, one Mr. Somkawa, provided a reprieve for this descent into banality, his uncharacteristic request fostering incentive to once again take up the hunt for Owie, my Melville-esque white whale. Since accepting this request, the rabbit hole had grown ever longer and twisted, and with it so too did the behavior of my new acquaintance, developing an unhealthy obsession that far exceeded my unfair interest in the recluse. Doubts and suspicions seemed to multiply as I plied further into the mystery of Owie, from his initial disappearance, abrupt even for him, to the startling connections being uncovered between him and the Oyamada murder. Repeatedly pushed for any and all details I could provide about Owie, regardless of how obscure and whatever context they were, this insistence on the part of my new friend took on a particular note of paranoia. When pressed to identify the recluse's handwriting, provided only the disjointed and nonsensical abstract of a far longer note, my concern grew. Though unable to piece together the letter in its entirety and intent, the handwriting was most conclusively Owie's, leading to puzzlement over how exactly the sample had been obtained. Though the two had coincided in literary journals and magazines, oftentimes in indirect dialogue, over their drastically different approaches to the genre of detective fiction, there had never been any actual correspondence to my knowledge. From what little information was provided, the familiarity with which Owie addressed the mystery recipient, whether my friend or his latest odd acquaintance, Oyamada's wife Yoshiko, was incongruent with the character and tone of our prior dealings. One lazy afternoon, having whiled away yet another morning in thought over these discrepancies, I thought rapping at my office door provided a welcome reprieve in the reverie. Inviting them in, I was surprised to see my secretary clutching a worn and battered envelope to her chest, resembling the countless manuscript submissions I had received hence, fixated on her curiously flustered appearance. "Sir, a package?" "Yes, I can see. Hand it here," I replied, cutting her off. But sir, Oishunde is listed as the sender. Jerking upright in my chair, I motioned for her to come closer, hand outstretched in an act of supplication, entreating her approach. Taking hold of the envelope, comforted by the tangible feel of its coarse, damp texture, consistent as it was with the telltale stains and discoloration that weighted the object in the reality of the present, Oishunde had risen again, and what's more, he had made an uncharacteristic point to contact me, in spite of his own well-documented aversion to such acts. Breaking the seal and upturning the contents over my cluttered desk, 2 smudged and equally stained pieces of parchment slid out, resting haphazardly among piles of the same. Following the familiar contours of each character, noting the distinct sweep and swoop of a given stroke, it was readily apparent that the document was authentic, insofar as my previous experience with Oe could be trusted. Seizing a sheet in each hand, I quickly set to the task of deciphering the scrawl before me, intently seeking answers to the mysteries that plagued Samakawa and now held my own fevered interest. Honda, you have always played a key role in promoting and spreading my work. I dare say my fame up to this point was directly contingent on your perseverance and dogged determination to pursue me in all my incarnations. For that, I thank you, in spite of your aiding of that wretch Samakawa. It is understandable, I suppose, as his intelligence is limited directly by his lacking imagination, constricted as he is by false idealism and notions of morality that have long since lost relevance. Since my debut, that wretch has plagued me every effort in the literary arena, preaching on and on about the merits of shrewd, analytical thought as a pillar of modern detective fiction, imploring our collective audience to follow him like a moralistic pariah. In his diligence, these delusions of grandeur merely flourished in response to the pining of the ignorant and slovenly public, clouding further the spark of intelligence and imagination that could be loosely ascertained from Samakawa's early work. Finding myself in an odd state of despair over this, it soon became my wanton desire to knead and nettle this upstanding young man, to encourage and cultivate him as an appropriate counterbalance to my own work, with an express point of tipping him wholly into the reality of which Japan works so feverishly to separate from. Most would merely denote this as a willful, dare I say harmful corruption of character, an almost full-blown obsession with destroying something merely for the sake of doing so. When I was a child, my mother used to cultivate the loveliest white chrysanthemums, a hobby that she was ceaselessly devoted to and held in great esteem for throughout not only our village, but the very valley. Though her diligent care of these delicate and transient blooms often drew doting commendation of her own perceived grace and knack as a mother, the truth, as it so often is, was quite another matter altogether. For whatever reason, my mother's love was spent wholly on these fragile life forms, and though I'd hardly say she was without a note of compassion or concern for my own well-being, I found myself seized by jealousy without reprieve or sign of abating. Often I would spend hours just staring at these upright, unblemished contenders for my mother's love, feeling wholly inadequate in their increasing radiance. How could I compete with such innocent heralds of the world's beauty and sanctity? These pure, pale white flowers would never diminish, never grow old as I would, tainted in the process by the filth of a world bent on its own eventual demise. My mother would never lose these brilliant reminders of glorious, dependent youth. The chrysanthemums would always need her, yet ask for nothing beyond simple, maternal nurturing. The chrysanthemums would remain as disorienting reminders of my own failings, born as they were from my inherent and unasked for humanity. The chrysanthemums existed in antithesis to my own unwanted existence. The chrysanthemums had to be marred, twisted, and destroyed. The chrysanthemums were reborn that day as the filth of the world subsumed them, and I was at peace. Samakawa, for all his sagacity, must be brought low as well, if only to challenge my own worldview once more, a perpetual drive to justify and redefine myself in direct counterpoint. If found wanting, this, our first direct correspondence, will also, unfortunately, serve as our last, sacrifice in the pursuit of moving beyond this world that clings to us. Oyamada Yoshiko. Unable to move beyond Yoshiko's closing remarks, the insistent rapping against my office door went unnoticed. The young secretary swept in with a mixture of confusion and surprise written plainly across her face. A woman's body has been discovered in the Sumida, which is a river through Tokyo.